All right, guys, welcome back to the Pocket Mads channel. It's Maddie here, and today we have a very special episode of Meta Monday, the weekly series where we analyze the Pokemon Pocket metagame and keep you guys up to date on everything going on in the competitive world of Pokemon Pocket. The reason today's Meta Monday is special is because we're going to be going over the results of our invitational tournament, our invitational championships that we had this past weekend. It was a very different tournament. We invited the top 128 players from our leaderboards over the past couple of months, and they battled it out to determine who would be the champion of this first season. So the tournament was a little bit different. Again, smaller amounts of players here, a larger collection of the best players in Pokemon Pocket. It was one big, bracket single elimination, and it was best of 5. So if you tuned into the live streams this weekend, I greatly appreciate it. It was a whole lot of fun. So we're going to go over the results here. The other thing that we're going to do in this video is really put a cap. Like we're going to finish this meta because Fantastical Parade B2, the new expansion to Pokemon Pocket, is releasing in just 2 days. It's actually coming out Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So it's not releasing on like daily reset. It's releasing like before that. So we're going to be able to go live here all night and have a really, crazy sort of time. So don't forget to tune into the live stream on Wednesday night. That's 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. But what we're going to do is talk about all of the deck lists. We'll break down the metagame a little bit. This will probably be a quicker Meta Monday. And we're going to relate all of the decks and all of the information and results to what we think is going to happen next season, right? It's going to be definitely like kind of looking forward to the new meta because there's going to be a lot of changes, especially once we kind of know the full set list, you know what I mean? So very exciting stuff. Hopefully tomorrow or Wednesday we have some more information about Fantastical Parade or B2. It's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get into, the Meta Monday, you got to go register, guys. Listen, it's a new season of PMPT tournaments. If you've never played in one of our weekly tournament series tournaments before, this is going to be your best opportunity to do it. $250 cash prize pool. This is the first tournament of the new season of the new metagame as well. So this is going to be this weekend, January 31st, Saturday, like 3 or 4 days, I guess, after B2 releases. So a bunch of new cards. The meta will be different. It's going to be super exciting. I would definitely recommend that you guys go play. We will be live streaming it again, of course, this weekend. So again, a lot of interesting stuff happening, a bunch of really cool things happening to Pokemon Pocket on this update, new game modes, new updates. It's a lot going on, especially with the new meta. You're going to want to stay tuned and stay up to date on everything that's been going on. And then I think the results of this tournament this weekend will likely define, the metagame moving forward. That's typically what happens, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, there it is. That's a long intro. Link to register down in the description below. Definitely go check this out. Here are the standings from the PMPT Invitational Tournament. Here they are, guys. Let's take a look at what happened. Here we go. So PMPT Invitational. This is what happened here. Again, the records are going to be interesting because there was no Swiss round, so it was just sort of an invitational, it was just like a single bracket tournament. First place, we have PF King Solomon from Puerto Rico, perfect 7-0, and guess what? He was playing Mega Altaria with Indeedee with Jingling, the traditional Mega Altaria deck, getting first place. Fun fact here, in the live streams, we actually watched like 4 matches of King Solomon in a row. And that's because we tuned into one of his matches and he just kept winning. And coincidentally, his Altaria deck was absolutely perfectly positioned to win this tournament. He ended up fighting in the last 4 rounds of the tournament, his last 4 rounds. So from top 16 all the way to grand finals, he ended up playing Suicune and Greninja 4 times in a row, beat all of those Suicune Greninjas, including some of the best players in the game. His deck was very well positioned for that matchup. So he goes 7-0. Great run for King Solomon. Coincidentally, King Solomon is now the king of the, PMPT Season 1. So very, very cool. Second place, we have PGX, Fiumba from Argentina, 6-1. He was playing Suicune and Greninja. Suicune Greninja, very, very heavily played in the Invitational, as you would expect. I don't think it was the #1 most played deck. I think Hydreigon was actually the most played deck, but Suicune was very successful, as we all know, a very strong deck list here. We'll take a look at it later. Fiumba here from Argentina, 6-1, made it to grand finals. You can watch back all of those games on the live streams. Adon Jackson, 3rd place from Germany. Tons of international players and support for this tournament, so congrats to everybody from around the world. Adon Jackson was playing Mega Altaria and Greninja. In fact, he was like by far the first person to make it into top 4. He was sitting there waiting for like an hour. So I think he just steamrolled through like his first 5 matches, made it all the way to top 4, and unfortunately just wasn't able to get the cards he needed to beat Suicune and Greninja. Greninja in top 4. Along with Lico Unite, another Suicune Greninja player here, of course, 5-1 top 4 from Venezuela. Tied here for 3rd place, I guess technically 4th place, but tied for 3rd. So big congrats to him. Froggy X Njord from France, our top placing Froggy X participant, 4-1 in top 8. He was playing Greninja in Absol. This deck saw a little bit of play this tournament, actually. A lot of high level players were playing Dark Greninja and Greninja Absol, and it was fairly successful this tournament. I actually haven't really looked at the metagame data. It'll be interesting to see at the end of this video. But shout out to him. Terabyte G from Colombia here, 4-1, also top 8. He was playing Suicune Greninja from Colombia, so shout out to him. Einstein from Indonesia, also top 8. Hydreigon and Mega Absol. Costa from the United States, also top 8. Playing Mega Blaziken and Heatmore. So Mega Blaziken did sort of, find its way into top 8 of the tournament. We had 1 Blaziken, 1 Hydreigon, 1 Dark Greninja, and then 2 Altaria decks, but really 1 Altaria and then 1 Altaria Greninja with 3 Suicune and Greninjas. And I think that the results, honestly, of our Invitational are a very accurate representation of what the metagame's been like over the last 3 months. I really think that it ended up being kind of a perfect example of kind of, what the meta looks like and what it's been looking like for quite some time. Again, shout out to all of these players here. If we take a look, so Gosu also was playing Absol and Hydreigon here. This is now into top 16. We had some more Suicune players. Again, congrats to all of these players. A bunch of just incredible. If you look at the standings, like every single one of these players is absolutely cracked. Like these are the best players in the game. So like, and it's a single elimination bracket. So there was some RNG involved. I will say that, the next invitational tournament will likely be at the end of like the B2 sort of block or like metagame, right? So we should be getting B2 and then another set after B2. And then by the time, B3 rolls around, that's when the next invitational will come up. So we should have at least like 2 months of tournaments until the next invitational. So definitely stay tuned for that. We're open to changing the format. Like, we didn't really, this is the first time we've done this. It's a kind of a tricky thing to, structure an invitational tournament that's both fun to watch for the viewers, that's different than the typical tournament, but accommodates, the top players on the standings. So we're open for feedback. If you guys have any feedback, let us know and we'll definitely consider it for the next invitational tournament. But keep in mind, the structure is definitely important for the viewer, right? I think that this structure, although maybe the players didn't necessarily think it was the best thing, I don't know, we'll have to see what they think. But for the viewer perspective, it was absolutely super hyped. The best of 5 single elimination was very, very fun to watch. Iluchin here was our highest placing Magnus and Oricorio here, I believe in top 16. That's kind of really it. I mean, there wasn't tons of variety. We had a Charizard here, tied for, top 32. We had Dragon Arcana in top 32. We had Jolteon in top 32. We had Double Greninja in top 32. We even had Flareon and Leafeon in the tournament. There's a lot of different decks, but to be fair, most of the top of the standings were sort of what you would consider as like the real meta deck. So again, that's the final standings. We'll break down the deck lists next. Big congrats to all of these players. A huge shout out to King Solomon. He got a special role in the Discord server. Absolute legend. And again, just thanks, massive thanks to all of the players who participated over the last, 4 months leading up to this invitational tournament. We're going to be continuing to run our PMPT tournament series. So again, go and register for Fantastical Festival. It's going to be a ton of fun. PMPT number 18. We're going to continue on. That's really what it all is. We're just trying to create the best competitive environment possible. These invitationals, they really are just sort of like a celebration more than like a, as much of a true competition, I guess. It's hard to do these types of things. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, let's dive into these deck lists here. Let's take a look at King Solomon's 7-0 first place Altaria deck list. Now, keep in mind, guys, he played Suicune and Greninja for his last 4 matches to win the tournament. And this is a deck that is very well built for Suicune and Greninja. Now, a lot of people saw this deck list and they immediately said, oh, you lose to Oricorio. And again, people say that all of the time about deck lists. Basically, any way that you play Mega Altaria other than like Dragon Arcana is going to lose to Oricorio. It's just not it's not a deck that has a lot of great answers to Oricorio and Magnezone. But you have to understand that especially in a tournament like this, less than like 6 or I don't know what percentage of the tournament was playing Magnezone or Oricorio, but really not that many. So when you're playing a deck list like this, you are just sort of hoping that you don't hit Magnezone or Oricorio. But what this deck does do very well is beat some of those really popular decks in the metagame like Suicune and Greninja, and I would say Hydreigon as well, right? Because with the Chingling locks, with the Hand Disruption, with Sabrina, with Mega Altaria being able to live a hit, definitely a deck that's probably more built to beat Suicune than anything, but that ended up working really well for King Solomon. And I think it's really the main story of Mega Altaria. Definitely the best Mega Evolution that we have in the game. It's just super broken. This might change as things move forward, but I honestly think Mega Altaria will have a very solid place in the metagame, even after like Mega Gardevoir and all these new Megas come out in Fantastical Parade, because I really think Mega Altaria is just super consistent, super strong. It has access to Sing Swablu. It's only a stage 1 Pokemon, 190 HP. Is effectively broken, retreat cost of 1, and only a 2 energy attack cost for 130 damage. A very simple Pokemon in nature, but a very consistent, a very, very strong Pokemon. It really is one of the best Pokemon in the entire game. It's just a great card. And you can pair a lot of things with Mega Altaria, which makes it kind of fun to play. You could play the Indeedee stuff with Giratina, you could play Dragon Arcana, or you could play it like this, which is sort of the Chingling version, which, you know, saw a ton of play last season, but kind of fell off a little bit this season in favor of the Hyrule Altaria deck, which is the other way to play it, which is with Greninja. So I think that this is a deck that's always done extremely well into Suicune, but has kind of auto lost to Magnezone or Oricorio. That's just the nature of this deck list. One of the early sort of rock, paper, scissors, you know, triangulation formations that we saw in the Mega Rising metagame. But yeah, I mean, Chingling really does kind of carry this deck. It is such a strong option. You know, you can chain Chinglings together, and then you can Mars your opponent to 1, go into Mega Altaria. And the other sort of, that's like the main core concept of the deck, is Chingling locking and then finishing the game with Mega Altaria. But you got to keep in mind that this deck list has so many things to hit specific breakpoints that are really good into Suicune and Greninja, and we saw this time and time again. The biggest reason why I think this deck is really good into Suicune and Greninja is because we're playing so many different damage modification options, which really ends up helping our ability to KO things like Suicune and even Greninja EX in some scenarios. And that's going to be Klefki to, you know, discard your opponent's Giant Cape. Suicune does play Giant Cape, so Klefki's really, really good to basically just do 20 extra damage effectively. Some people ask me why play Klefki instead of Guzma. The real reason for this is that Klefki is actually searchable with Lycia, and you can kind of like wait to use it. You can bench it, and it's going to add damage to Mega Altaria, and then whenever you want to deal that plus 20 damage, you can just sort of use Klefki's ability, discard it, bench a new basic Pokemon, and then you've effectively, you know, discarded their Giant Cape and done 20 damage without having to play a supporter card. So you can play Research, you can draw into it, but the main factor that we really saw was that you can play Red and Klefki in the same turn to effectively go plus 40. Like, that's plus 40 damage in one turn. 40 plus 130 is 170. That's going to KO those Greninja EXs, which is definitely really relevant. Also allows you to get over the, you know, the Giant Cape Suicune, you know what I mean? So it's just really, really nice. Not on top of all that, we also have Rocky Helmets, which pair extremely well with Chinglings, because Chingling doesn't deal a lot of damage, and Indeedee in other decks like Suicune and Greninja is able to heal off all of the damage that Chingling does. But when you have a Rocky Helmet on the Chingling, all of a sudden they go minus 10 damage, like net total, and, you know, that sets up a KO opportunity for Mega Altaria. So you can even attach the Rocky Helmet to Mega Altaria, and it's just a ton of extra damage, and it really puts Mega Altaria over the edge in being able to KO a lot of those Pokemon that you see play. It's the same deal with Hydreigon, but it also, again, works for, of course, you know, Suicune. And it's the same with Absol, because Absol's at 170, just like Greninja EX. So this is a deck primarily built to beat the two sort of other top decks in the game, being Hydreigon and Suicune and Greninja. One's Sabrina, one's Cyrus. Very, very good stuff here. Sabrina's also a really good card into Suicune and Greninja. You can play it in the early game, knock them off their energy curve. Just a really, really good card. Plus, of course, one Cyrus, so we got a little bit of everything here. Double Research with one Lycia and one Copycat. Great consistency cards in the deck. One Pokeball. This deck really does have everything it needs to beat that matchup, and we saw it. And one of the things about our tournament structure this weekend was that it was best of 5. So what that means is that if you have a good matchup into a particular deck list and you're playing a best of 5 series against them, it's much more likely that you're actually able to consistently win that matchup, because it doesn't leave as much room for like RNG and like bricking and things like that, right? So because all this deck had a good matchup into Suicune, in a best of 5 series, like, you're almost always going to win, whereas in a best of 1, it's really anyone's game. In a best of 3, it's still kind of anybody's game sometimes, but a best of 5, it typically does come down to non-RNG factors. So a very, very strong deck, a great meta call from King Solomon here. And again, he got a little bit lucky in bracket, but not many people playing Magnezone or Oricorio, and a lot of people playing Hydreigon and Suicune. A big reason why I think he was ending up, you know, why he ended up winning. So great call for him, great deck list. Mega Altaria is the champion of this entire A1 block. It really is. I mean, or B1 block. It's just, just such a great card. You know, it really is. It's super good. And Suicune and Greninja here. Fiumba made it to Grand Finals. This is the highest placing Suicune and Greninja deck, and I believe that basically all of the top Suicune decks were playing the same list. This is the widely agreed upon Suicune and Greninja deck. And you might notice here that instead of Copycat or like something else in the deck, we are actually playing one copy of May. And I think May is one of the most underrated cards in the entire game. It's extremely good, especially when we're playing Frogadier and two different Greninja types. So we're playing 3 different evolution Pokemon. Very, very good to help find whatever evolution Pokemon we might need. So it's very, very good in Suicune and Greninja. I think very underrated in this deck list. Copycat can be nice for the mirror matchup, but when you're playing Frogadier and different types of Greninjas, I think this May is really good. What's interesting is that we're only playing one of each Greninja. So we've kind of sacrificed, or we've traded just playing an extra evolution Pokemon for playing May to more accurately find the evolution Pokemon that we want. Now, the one downside to this deck is that you're never going to be able to get double Water Shuriken Greninjas, which sometimes is a win condition for Suicune. Now, again, this was the highest placing Suicune deck, you know, I think it's very, very strong. So May, very underrated, actually making its way into a Grand Finals, deck, which is really funny. You know, May made it, Lycia made it, and Copycat made it. The 3 new supporter cards were all present in the Grand Finals, which really goes to show how strong those supporters from Mega Rising really were. And nothing else to really say about Suicune and Greninja, other than that it's just, you know, still probably the best deck in the game. I mentioned it to Jay during the broadcast that for some reason, over the last like month and a half, people just don't really care about counterplaying this deck anymore. And it really sort of brings to light a lot of the things that I think make Suicune and Greninja very sticky in the metagame. One, it's just a broken deck list, but it's clear that there are really strong options into this deck. It's just that, you know, those strong options are also weak to other things. So it really kind of showcases that the metagame is pretty balanced, but people feel comfortable playing Suicune and Greninja because it's so consistent. So, you know, moving forward as we go into the next season, I do think some of the new decks are going to be extremely well positioned into this matchup here into Suicune and Greninja. Gardevoir to me seems like a deck that will kind of have an incredible matchup into Suicune and Greninja. I think 210 HP plus healing for 90. You can just leave a Gardevoir in the active spot. You don't even need to bench anything, and you're just going to outlast Suicune and Greninja, which I think is a really big deal. And I think it's a big reason why Gardevoir is going to win that matchup, similarly to how Decidueye is able to win this matchup. Now, what does that mean for Suicune and Greninja? Well, it just means that there's another strong deck in the metagame, but whenever a strong deck kind of takes over, counter meta will emerge, and I think that that's been happening really quickly, so pretty early into this new season. In fact, maybe even by the time our tournament happens this weekend, there's going to be sort of a counter meta developing around Gardevoir, because you got to, it's guaranteed Gardevoir is going to see a ton of play. So some counter meta will emerge around Gardevoir, and whether or not Suicune and Greninja is good into that counter Gardevoir matchups, then, you know, I think that'll kind of determine whether or not we see Suicune and Greninja moving forward. And I think it'll probably continue to see play. But as time goes on, this deck is becoming less and less of, the dominant deck that it once was. I mean, it did do well. I'm not saying it's not a dominant deck. It's just, it's not nearly as strong as it was, you know, before Mega Rising released, right? For that month or two. It was absolutely broken for those couple of months. So now I think it's just sort of a nice, you know, tier 1, top tier deck, along with maybe 3, 4, 5 other decks. And that's pretty good balance, right? So if we add some new decks to that whole mix, it's going to be, you know, a very interesting metagame, which I'm kind of looking forward to. Now, speaking of broken decks, we've got Adon Jackson here playing Altaria Greninja, and this is like the high roll king right now. What's interesting, though, about his deck list is that he's sort of, again, like not playing it necessarily as high roll as other people do. And by that, I mean he's playing 1 Frogadier and 1 Rare Candy, so he's not actually playing like the full Rare Candy high roll stuff, which is interesting. In the face of Chingling decks, this is going to make this a little bit more, doable. Basically, this deck list here into the face of other Chinglings really doesn't have any options to get around it other than putting that Chingling asleep with Swablu and then hoping that you can spend that turn, evolving with Rare Candy. That really is like how this deck gets over other Chinglings. But this is a deck that, has the strongest turn 2 potential in the entire game. You can go turn 2 Mega Altaria with Greninja and Cyrus, and all of a sudden you just can't really lose. I've actually, in a ranked battle before, I've gone turn 2 Mega Altaria with double Greninjas on my bench. That's 170 damage. I KO'd a Cape's full HP Suicune on turn 2, and my opponent conceded immediately. That's what this deck list can do. Now, inherently a bit inconsistent. Keep in mind, Greninja here is just a Pokemon that's only meant to use Water Shuriken. We're never able to attack with it, which, is different than Suicune and Greninja, right? Suicune and Greninja can technically attack with this Greninja, and they can play Greninja EX, so it's just a different world. And I think that Greninja is still a good, very flexible card in a lot of different decks, but it's definitely a bit worse if you're not playing it in Suicune and Greninja, like with water energies. But I think this deck will probably stick around. I don't know, like, if there's ever... They'd have to release something that is either really counterplay to Greninja specifically, or they'd have to release something that's even more like high roll insane than this, which I just don't know if there's really anything coming next season that's going to be as explosive as a deck like this. So it'll remain consistent. Altaria will always see play because it's so consistent, and however you want to play it, you know, at least one of those versions will be consistent. Another deck playing one May, one Lissia, one Copycat, which is really fun to see. And again, guys, middle evolutions here with May, just something that we're seeing more and more of, which is really cool. And Chingling. You know, Chingling's broken, and I think it's always kind of worth playing Chingling. I think it'll continue to see a ton of play moving forward. But we all know this deck list. We all know what it does. It's a little different here with May, one Frogadier, one Rare Candy. So a little bit different, but still absolutely incredible. Just a very, very strong deck. He ended up burning out in top 4 and just kind of getting swamped by a Suicune player. But, you know, that's what happens, right? Eventually, you just sort of don't have enough to make it. Here's the highest placing Dark Greninja deck list. This is Froggy X and Jord. And this is, again, a very similar deck to the Altaria deck, but instead of being like explosive high roll and just like doing a bunch of damage, we're like a control deck with Chinglings, with Mega Absol, with Greninja. Everybody knows this deck as well. How do I think this deck will position into next season? Like, it's really kind of hard to say. I do think that Absol will have a decent time hitting for weakness onto Gardevoir. So when you bring in Mega Absol, you're guaranteed to live a hit, which is pretty nice into that Gardevoir deck. So we can hit for 100, discard a supporter card, and then retreat, which is effectively might win you the game in some scenarios. Plus their Greninja pings, plus maybe Darkrai damage, we're able to hit up to 140 for 2 turns into Gardevoir, which, you know, coincidentally is really relevant, especially if we're discarding, a healing supporter card like a Diantha or a Lily from Gardevoir. This is a deck, along with Chingling as well, to stop them from rare candying. Did I say? I don't know. I feel like that was hard to say for some reason. But yeah, I think that this deck list actually is going to end up being pretty well positioned into Gardevoir, especially if they have anything on the back line. We're able to basically Cyrus it up like an Indeedee. Greninja, Darkrai, Mega Absol with Cyrus, and Rocky Helmets as well are going to be able to one-hit KO Indeedee, which is pretty cool if Gardevoir plays Indeedee. So this is interesting. You know, unless Gardevoir can play something that allows it to hit for 170 to like maybe one-hit KO Absol, it's going to be a tough time. And I don't know if Gardevoir is going to have that much space in the deck to play Cyrus, which is going to also be one of the main counterpoints to Gardevoir. Is like, you know, you're playing so many healing supporter cards. Like, do we have room for like, you know, other tech supporter cards in our deck? Because we're going to play consistency cards like Research and Copycat. We'll have to see. You know, we'll have to build some test out some Gardevoir decks. But I think that this Dark Greninja deck is going to be pretty well positioned into Gardevoir. Yet another option that might become relevant even more so moving forward into the next season. Now let's talk about Hydreigon. Here, I don't know what the this is. This 8th place or 7th place? This was the most played deck this tournament. Was Hydreigon. Einstein here from Indonesia, our highest placing Hydreigon deck, and this is going to be the poison version. This is kind of the version of Hydreigon that's really becoming popular, realistically. And this is kind of a flex version: 1 Indeedee, 1 Nihilego, and then of course, you know, 2/2 Hydreigon, 2 Rare Candy. It's high roll Hydreigon, but this is a deck list here that is a lot more well positioned into opposing Absol decks, specifically because of the Poison Barb Nihilego and the 130 from Hydreigon. It adds up to be a total of 170 damage across 2 turns, which means that Mega Absol is never really safe to come in. And I think that this is a very valuable deck here in a lot of different matchups. Again, that 170 number going to be relevant for Greninja EX as well. The number it's not relevant for is Altaria, which has 190. So I think Hydreigon's going to, again, be super relevant going into next season. Another deck that should have very, very good potential into Gardevoir. Hydreigon with weakness and everything, especially with Rocky Helmets or Poison Barb, should be very consistently able to 2-hit KO Gardevoir, even through the healing, which is a really big deal. So I expect Gardevoir to be, if it is going to get halted early on next season, it will be by Hydreigon. So just keep in mind, a lot of people will be playing Hydreigon as sort of the premier counter meta play. There might be some Charizard that sees play as well, but I think Hydreigon going to be one of those premier versions. And I think that Poison Barb Nihilego will likely maybe just remain as kind of the premier Hydreigon deck. Again, I don't think that this is that good of a deck, especially because Suicune Suicune and Greninja so popular and Altaria also popular, but it is a deck that can beat anything because it is high roll. So I think that it'll get boosted a little bit by Gardevoir's inclusion into the meta, but I don't really ever feel super strongly that Hydreigon is on the same level as things like Altaria and Suicune, just from a consistency standpoint. Like, that's just sort of how I feel about it. But still an incredibly solid deck, a very quality deck. One of the best decks in the game. And again, I think reflected by how many people played it this weekend, even though its highest placement here was 7th place. And then in 8th place, our top Blaziken deck. Blaziken sneaking its way in. You know, I think, again, one of the more underrated Pokemon in the entire game. You got to think, too, like, if we are able to maybe boost the damage with Mega Blaziken a little bit, you know, that burn damage stacks up. Like, it does add up over time. Mega Blaziken is going to be able to live multiple hits from Mega Gardevoir if we have Giant Cape or some healing involved. And that means that Mega Blaziken might be pretty well positioned as well into Gardevoir. Like, again, I think Gardevoir is specifically going to be really good into Suicune and Greninja, but it's going to struggle against a lot of the other things that are present in the metagame. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see. You know, I think Gardevoir is a very strong deck, but so many options should be able to deal with it pretty effectively. Mega Blaziken is just underrated. You know, it's actually very similar to Gardevoir. It's basically the exact same Pokemon. It just has like a different advantage. It just does like a little bit more damage, and you don't have access to like Diantha, you know what I mean? But it's still a stage 2 Mega Pokemon, 210 HP, attack cost of 2. Like, it's basically the same thing. It's just like fire type Gardevoir. It's just a different flavor. But I think it'll actually do pretty well up into Gardevoir, and it's continues to do well into Hydreigon and into Suicune. Just an underrated card, honestly. I think a lot of people just prefer to play other things, but Blaziken's very underrated. We're not playing Rocky Helmet in this deck, but we are playing 1 Sabrina and double Cyrus. So tons of win conditions here. You know, gusting options is what we call it. So like Cyrus, double Cyrus makes sense with double Tongue Whip Heatmore. But typically, you know, we see like Furfrou in the deck list. Like, that's kind of what became standard. 1 Cyrus, 1 Sabrina with 1 Heatmore, 1 Furfrou. This deck just said, you know what? I'm going double Heatmore and I'm going double Cyrus, but I'm going to keep the Sabrina. I'm just going to cut the Rocky Helmet and the Lily. So a very interesting deck for sure. Yeah, man, Mega Blaziken still quality, still one of the better decks in the game. Let's scroll down here to Illuchine's deck, which is going to be the top placing Magnezone Oricorio deck. And, you know, not many people played Magnezone. You would expect it to maybe be a little bit higher up in the standings. But again, guys, keep in mind, Hydreigon was the most played deck this weekend, really negating anything that, you know, Magnezone Oricorio would have been able to do. And I do think Illuchine ended up losing, to Hydreigon here in top 16. So, you know, if he never hit a Hydreigon, if he got lucky enough, then he might have been able to ride through the rest of the tournament, because this is a deck that's very well positioned into basically everything other than Hydreigon, which is pretty funny. But yeah, just a lot of people playing Hydreigon for whatever the reason. Again, I don't know. It's just people don't want on Oricorio. It's like people are very focused on not losing to Oricorio, and I think they really factored that in as one of the primary reasons why they should play Hydreigon. And then they hit like 1 Oricorio all tournament or something, and it's like, was it really worth it? I don't know. That's just why I always sort of seemingly speak down about playing Hydreigon. But this is Illuchine's deck. He was playing a split Magnezone lineup. We were able to tune into that top 16 match towards the end here. He played very, very well. One of the best players in the entire game, one of the best streamers, so shout out to Illuchine. We are playing just kind of standard Magnezone Oricorio, right? 1 PCL, 1 Copycat, 1 Lycia, 1 Clement. This is sort of just the package here. A lot of people do play double Mirror Shot Magnezone, but there are a lot of instances where the 110 HP Magnezone is really relevant. Like, it does the extra 20 damage, like does matter a lot in a lot of scenarios. So I understand, but it is kind of an inherent inconsistency when you're playing one of each, because you don't know exactly which one you're going to have at any given time, because we're not playing May in the deck or anything. So it's you know, it adds a little bit of inconsistency, but it does give you some additional options. And then Mirror Shot, I would say Mirror Shot in general is just the better Magnezone, but sometimes, like I said, you know, 110 is just a little bit better than 90. You know what I mean? Especially on those Greninjas that we hit for weakness. Like, it's, you know, things matter sometimes like that. But yeah, very, very good deck list. I think Magnezone Oricorio will continue to be basically about as effective and as important as it will be next season. But I think there will be some hardships for it, especially because, like I said, you know, the counter meta around Gardevoir will develop early, and it'll be Hydreigon mostly, and you know, that's not an environment that's very good for Magnezone Oricorio. In fact, you know, that Hydreigon stuff, if it becomes very popular next season, you know, the decks that are going to benefit from that the most are Suicune and Greninja, and maybe Altaria. Like, those are the only decks that you would really play to specifically do well into Hydreigon. So, you know, we'll have to see. Again, the metagame going into week 2 is going to be very different next season than going into week 4. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be a lot of development, a lot of fluctuation and changes, and it should be very interesting to watch. But shout out to Illuchine. Very, very cool here. And that's basically all of the top decks at the top of the standings. So what I'm going to go and do now is just quickly take a look at the metagame tab, which I haven't actually taken a look at yet. So I'm curious to see what the metagame data looks like. Again, the matchup, the matchup win rates should be a little bit more volatile here because it was best of 5. That's sort of my expectation. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look here at the metagame for the tournament. Yeah. All right. So, Hydreigon was the most played deck. 22 people played it. That was 21% of the tournament, and it did pretty well, about 24 to 22, so a little bit over a 50% win rate, but really nothing too phenomenal here from Hydreigon. And as we see, Suicune was the second most played deck at 18% meta share, 35 and 19. That's incredible. So again, a very well-positioned meta. If you take a look at the deck seeing play, like, yes, if Hydreigon's the most played deck, Suicune is going to do well, and 35 and 19 is an incredible record here in bracket. Multiple Suicunes in top 4. Again, Suicune beats Hydreigon, especially in a best of 5 series. So really no surprise there. I would say that Suicune had a much higher win rate. Dark Greninja, again, also about 50% win rate, 14 and 12. A decent deck right now. Nothing like that really stands out from its positional standpoint. But Magnezone Oricorio here, 10% of the tournament. Only 10 people played it, but it went 7 and 10. Again, likely due to the fact that Hydreigon was very common. 0-3 into Hydreigon and 0-2 into Dark Greninja as well, which is just in general pretty tough. You know what I mean? So this was definitely not, I don't think, the perfect time to be playing Magnezone Oricorio. And at least none of the Magnezone Oricorios got very lucky in terms of their matchups in the bracket. High roll Altaria with Greninja was, again, about 50% win rate. That makes sense. This is just a high roll deck. It's going to win sometimes. It's going to lose sometimes. I don't ever expect this deck to be that high above a 50% win rate. It's just sometimes it pops off, sometimes it does nothing. That's inherently what the deck does. It's a very, very traditional, like, just high roll strategy. Altaria and Ndidi here. Only 7 people played it, but they went 11 and 6, including King Solomon, which ended up winning the tournament. So if we take a look here, the standings were pretty rough. Like, realistically, like, they all, like, didn't do anything, and then King Solomon went 7-0. And again, I think this kind of just comes down to the matchups, right, at the end of the day. 4-1 into Suicune in a best of 5 series is interesting, and basically all of the other matchups were kind of just hit or miss, right, which is, you know, kind of how Altaria functions. It even went 1-1 into Magnezone Oricorio, which is crazy in a best of 5 series. I don't know how that happened. 1-1 into Hydreigon, only played it 2 games, so that's not a lot of data. 1-2 into Dark Greninja, so it actually lost a bit to Dark Greninja technically, but this is such a small sample, it's hard to read. The 4-1 into Suicune, I think, was sort of the reason why it ended up winning. In fact, King Solomon, I guess, was the only player to hit, like, Suicunes other than one other, because he played 4 and he beat them all. So, like, one other Mega Altaria deck played a Suicune and it lost. So that's just a crazy circumstance there. But again, you know, that's how brackets work. That's how, like, you know, things go sometimes, you know, very interesting. We can filter by win rate to see. Technically, this one person playing Blaziken Heatmore was the highest win rate at 4-1. But there was also this player here who was 3-1. And yeah, everything else here was, like, pretty standard, you know. Suicune, Greninja, Mega Altaria, the 2 premier decks, I think, in the meta right now, and they interact with each other in a very volatile way. And a lot of other decks here that kind of just struggled, to be fair. I mean, like, everything else below, like, these top whatever decks, like, really didn't do anything, and that's probably why not many people played them. You know what I mean? Like, Flareon had a losing matchup, Jolteon had a losing win rate this tournament. You know, Decidueye, hold on, let me go back. Like, Decidueye didn't do anything, the one Decidueye player. You know, Charizard didn't really do much. Like, so it's, you know, it's hit or miss, right? When only 1 or 2 people are playing a deck list, it really is hit or miss whether or not they do well in a single elimination bracket. But yeah, there it is. That's the metagame, guys. That's what happened this weekend. Let me know what you guys think. Again, very, very fun. Big congrats to King Solomon and everybody who participated in this invitational tournament. Thank you guys so much for playing all season and tuning into the live streams. The tournaments are super fun, and they're ran by, not myself. I don't want people to get confused. They're ran by our whole team of people that make it possible. Our judges, our moderators, and our caster teams. Just absolutely incredible people that kind of do this just out of the kindness of their hearts. They're not getting paid or anything. So, you know, big shout out to them. And again, guys, please continue to play as we go into the next season. It's going to be very exciting here. Go and register for PMPT number 18. Fantastical Festival, the first tournament here of the new season and of the new metagame. It's going to be super hype. Link to register down in the description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. We'll talk to you guys soon. Tomorrow, basically, we'll be back tomorrow. So tune in and, yeah, stay tuned. Lots of really fun things are coming in the next couple of weeks for Pokemon Pocket, which is fun. I'm really excited for it. All right, guys, peace out. Have a good one. We'll see you guys later. And, yeah. Bye.